Welcome back. We're going to be talking about finance, accounting, and operations, about strategy and financial performance, but we're going to put all of those considerations from the world of business in a larger umbrella, and that is, who are we as human beings when we do business? And is the profit motive and the free market as a paradigm acceptable excuses to behave poorly? Well, my guest doesn't think so, and she has delivered a TED Talk on the topic of kindness as a competitive advantage. I'm pleased to welcome from Westminster University, Vicki Graham-Whiting. Welcome, how are you?
Thank you, I'm doing
so
great.
Good to see you.
It's phenomenal to be
It's
here.
been too long, and it's really nice to have you back.
Yes.
Let's launch right into it, because I think the title of your TED Talk and the larger purpose and subject and sentiments contained therein are not only really evocative, but they really drew me in when I saw your post on social media and said, "Hey, this is a talk that I gave." Of course, TED is an amazing platform, and they do incredible work. And whenever I hear that someone who I'm pleased to call a friend like
Yes.
you has been involved, my good friend Stacy Demalski, who's recently given a TED Talk. I'm both thrilled for you and thrilled for TED that they have such wonderful contributors. Talk about the genesis of your experience and formulating the story, the narrative, and then turning it into a TED Talk.
Yeah, my background, my research is in leadership, and as I've studied it over 25 years, really our understanding of, as a leader, how you really pull out the best in people and how you get people committed behind a vision has evolved from, like you said, the kind of like, let's make sure we've got this clear strategy, let's have these operational plans so that we can assure this kind of profit margin, to really understanding that it's the people, it's the human resource that is your distinguishing characteristic in our knowledge environment. And so when we look at people and not processes, how do you get the most productivity from them? And it's when they're satisfied and when they're committed to the organization's vision and values. And where that comes from, as we know from Dale Carnegie and Warren Buffett talks about it a lot. It really is treating people with fairness and respect and positive reinforcement. And so there's a lot of different research projects on these different areas, the positive organization scholarship and the level 5 leaders and the emotional intelligence. And so there's all these pieces. And as I looked at my research, I'm like, there's got to be some kind of a harmonizing view that brings these different ideas together. And the further I went back in the literature, I ended up at Aristotle in terms of kindness is the path to greatness. And so then after going back, I went forward and started looking at organizations that apply these kind principles and how that is the leverage for success. And you look at individual coaches and those who act with this kindness. That's what sets them apart and really builds a legacy of greatness, a true competitive advantage, a distinguishing characteristic that people then stand behind and for.
And it occurs to me that simply that perspective and that long view, the very, very long view in the case of your work, it stands almost in anathema to the business environment that so many leaders and corporations are subjected to, and I always kind of boil it down to the quarterly earnings call.
Right.
And it's like it's like that's the antithesis of what we're talking about, where you take almost like a standardized test kind of thing that happens every 90 days and say, 7 days or 21 days out from the next earnings call, we're going to take core values and core operations and throw them out the window because we gotta make earnings, or we gotta have good news for the Wall Street analysts, that kind of thing. And
right.
You're talking about a very, very different perspective.
A very different perspective that drives the same results. That's what drives me crazy.
Right. But it's that transition between
Yes.
short-term thinking and committing to the long-term and saying, as a leader, as a CEO or a CFO or someone like that who's dealing with investors and analysts and all that kind of thing, okay, we may have to have a couple few of those quarterly earnings calls that are a rocky road in order to definitively and permanently make the transition.
Right, and we're going to invest in our people, and
Yes.
we are going to treat them fairly and give them different opportunities and come up with ways if they are having a hard time, not to put them on a performance plan, but instead to say, okay, how do we work together to get you to a point of success? And so it's that investment, yes, that looks in the short term like I'm having to pay training and development funds or whatever it is, and yet you turn that person into a loyal, high-functioning, highly productive employee, then your earnings do follow that, and that's what the research shows.
And you're treating your employees as an investment rather than an expense.
Exactly, yes.
The difference, not current income, but value of the enterprise in the long run.
Right.
And we have a little clip that we're going to take a look at from your TED Talk.
Yes,
Fantastic.
Great.
I love the setting. I love the formality of it. And we were talking a little bit while the clip was running about preparation and what a mountain to climb it is to get to the point where you walk out on that stage and you're in the present moment of giving a TED Talk.
And what we were talking about is interesting, right? Where you said, oh, you thought someday that would be one of your goals. And I hear that from people. It was never one of my goals.
Interesting.
And yet, when I had such a passion for this, and I know that when we treat people with kindness, and we realize that it's not a soft thing, it's not a weak thing, but this is really about accountability as well as compassion. And then I'm like, that's a message that I want to share. And I think that's what TED does well, is they help you. I mean, clearly I was nervous just as I am now. This isn't, this is not my classroom. But they do look for those people that have such a passion for what they are going to talk about. And then they want you to give it in as authentic a voice as you can. And so it's this weird kind of a combination of practice but don't memorize.
Indeed. And there is a little territory in there where you can be loose, smooth, but also know exactly where you're going enough to not get off track. And of course, I get the sense that that's one of the main reasons why I probably should never give a TED Talk. That whole thing of keeping going in a straight direction might be difficult for your bald pelt there. So what's next in your work? Talk a little bit about kind of where you're at with research, with the promulgation of the work that you've already done, both in the classroom and in these kinds of amazing events and addresses. What's next for you?
Right. So I've got, I'm formalizing kind of the construct of kindness, and I've got, I'll be working with Intel. They've got some teams that they want to look at different leaders and really then say, okay, how does this play out in an organization when we quantify it and when we look at it through that really statistical research lens, and how does it bear out? Because qualitatively, certainly we can come up with case after case, as you saw in the TED Talk. We look at Walmart under Sam Walton's leadership compared to when the children took over and had a whole different strategic approach away from kindness toward that dog-eat-dog,
institutional toughness kind of mentality.
And so really then taking all of these myriad of cases that say, yes, this is it, kind of formalizing that construct of kindness, because it is made up of a lot of different factors, as opposed to our sense of you could substitute kindness with politeness or niceness. It really is many more factors than that.
Which appear from a fairly short distance, but from a long distance to be similar, and yet
that is the hard stuff too, right? It's the honesty, it's the accountability, it's the respect. So you're getting both sides of kind of the soft and the. It's hard, but it's accountability. It's making sure that you're holding yourself and others to the standard, and that's why it works.
And it's performance measurement too, just the same as what Wall Street is purporting to do.
Yes.
In earnings per share or any one of 1,000 different financial ratios that are supposed to be diagnoses of the health and success of an organization. But in the end, the human element of your organization isn't your real estate, it's not your fixed assets, it really is your human capital, as the term is
Right.
used.
Well, and look at your show, right? I mean, how many guests are you going to have come in here if your whole focus was, well, come in here and it'll help your revenues, or it'll help your, you know,
sure.
I'm here because you are kind and you want to share these messages and you make me feel welcome and appreciated. And that's what it's about. And it applies in every setting, whether it's family, community, organization, and our world. And so that's why this research is so important to me.
The freedom to be kind and get results.
Yeah, be successful through kindness is phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
So tell folks where they can find out more information about your work, about TED and kind of the intersection of Westminster, which is a fantastic institution that has supported TED in great ways.
It is, and whose culture really aligns behind this and
Truly.
supports my research
Truly.
in a great way. So if you look at Westminster, the Center for Cultural Innovation, that whole center is looking at organizations that are practicing these kind behaviors that draw out the best in employees. And so looking at Westminster's business school, you'll be able to find a lot of resources,
Excellent.
white papers, a lot of thought leaders in there. In my website, VickiWhiting.com, certainly post things up, and I'm getting more going on the blogs and sharing kind of case studies and that type of thing. So yeah, just you can't learn too much about kindness,
so great.
right?
It's true. Well, as both a thought leader, as a researcher, but also as a voice that I see emerging in this important topic, it's so great to have you here, and we wish you all the best for continued success, and we hope to hear your voice much more as we continue into the future.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Vicki Graham Whiting, check out VickiWhiting.com if you're interested in business and practical approaches to using kindness to maximize your financial and every aspect of your business performance. Check her out. More Gorgeous Gourds right after this. The rocking continues on Park City Television.